as weird as that sounds. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody with a uterus in between, we are talking today about period tracking and how you can do that from your phone, just like any normal digital load management tool that we might otherwise use in sports, such as how tired you are, how your mood is today. We're just going to be asking some questions and taking data about your menstrual cycle, teaching you how to do that. If you're not sure how the menstrual cycle might affect your athletic performance and why this is important, go ahead and check out our last video on periods and performance. That'll give you the review that you need to get started. Today, we're going to be going over two specific apps. That is the FitrWoman app, which is a period tracking app specifically targeting active women. The second one is the iOS Health app. So if you're an Android user and not an iPhone user, you're out of luck there, but there are a lot of other period tracking apps. So take a dive into the Google store and have a look at which one works best for you. Just a medical disclaimer before we get started. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a sports scientist, neuroscientist, and a psychologist, and so I'm talking within that scope of practice as opposed to anything medical. So take this as you will. Let's talk about what is important to actually track. Do we have a period at all? Do we have a phase in which we bleed at all? And how many days is that? How intense are the symptoms surrounding that? So in the luteal phase, at the end of the luteal phase, and the early follicular phase, as you would have learned in the last video, we're going to have PMS, where we're going to have the most symptomology popping up that we're really aware of, probably cramps, things that are painful and that actually get in our way, as opposed to in the middle of the cycle, we might not recognize our symptoms as much. Most every app that you're gonna find available will prompt you almost every day to ask for your symptoms. Are you menstruating right now? How are you doing? And were you active today? And those three things are gonna give you a really good insight into how your menstrual cycle works. So why do we wanna track these things? Well, at the moment, there's a lot of inconclusive evidence about the menstrual cycle, but we know that it has an impact, whether it's psychological, physiological, or both. People experience pain. There is a hormone fluctuation that's happening in any body that was born assigned female that has a uterus. That's what's happening, whether we like it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. At the same time, the female athlete triad is a thing where we don't intake enough nutrients and we exercise too much and we don't even have a period anymore. We lose the days where we bleed. So what we want to track is, are we bleeding? If yes, then how long? How intense is the symptomology around that time? How are our symptoms through the rest of the month? And your activity level, how much activity you were able to do that day? And how long is our cycle in total? Okay, so we're going to open the app. And this is just tracking based on my period. So I'm in phase 2. And here we're going to see a couple of tips. We're going to see physiology, training, and nutrition tips here underneath. And you can swipe through and see in the different phases kind of what's going on. It explains your hormones, what that means, kind of all the medical jargon out of the way. And of course, you can always look through the other cycles. Here's when you'll actually get your period in phase 1. But I'm in phase 2 right now. So if I want to add something, I think I already added for today. And then I can say if I have a flow or not. That would say I have period, but I'm not on my period right now. I can just tap in any symptoms, but those aren't my symptoms. And then it's automatically saved. If I want to write any notes in here saying I was sick or had any other symptoms, I can put them in right here. And tracks training intensity as well. You can also view all of that by clicking up top right, and here is the calendar where you should be logging in. We can see I'm not super great about that. I used to be better, but you can see all periods so that you can track where you are in your cycle, how far apart they are, if there's any irregularities. This can be really, really helpful. And to go back and see, you just click on it, and it'll tell you what you had already logged, and then it will give you a suggestion for when your period might be in the upcoming weeks. Now, going to the iOS Health app, and I'm sorry if you're an Android user, but I'm a little bit partial to this app because everything is together. So I'm going to go here to my cycle protocol is what it is in English. I didn't even think about the fact that my phone's in German, but here we are. And it's really the same situation. Here I'm going to say I'm not menstruating today. If I was, I could give how bad it is. So from lightly to moderately to bleeding hard, so heavy bleeding. Do I have any symptoms, acne, feeling of fullness, exhaustion, any cramps, anything like that? No, I have acne. Now, what I like about this app specifically is that it has a lot of symptoms and you can put in your own symptoms if you want to. It still gives you this really cool overview, and then it tells you, of course, when you might get your periods or the estimation. But what we also have is you can go to options here next to the protocol and basically say what you want to be shown. For any woman who is looking to conceive or is concerned with pregnancy, there's also other factors that you can put into the protocol. So for example, when you might be ovulating, sexual activity, body temperature, etc., and any other factors. If you have PCOS, you can also monitor that here under factors. And then here again is the whole calendar and the current cycle. And here it's just really, really easy to track if there are any patterns, when my cycle begins, how long my cycle is. But it's just really easy to track because you can see in all of the past months the average cycle length. Any difficulties within that, it's really easy to look at. So after you've tracked for about 3 months, you're going to be able to look back at the pattern of symptoms. So you might see that symptoms do pop up throughout the rest of the month, and that's regular. That's a regular thing, maybe around ovulation, maybe in your luteal phase, maybe your PMS is always the same, or maybe it always starts 2 days before you're going to bleed. And that's a great thing to know, because then we can adjust things like your nutritional intake, taking in things that maybe will help reduce the bloatedness, trying out a different kind of training when we're having trouble concentrating or having trouble with intensity, being able to find other ways around that, focusing on sleep and regeneration and mood when there's times that we know we're going to have trouble with concentration or trouble with sleep or even trouble performing. We're going to want to emphasize then regeneration there. Also important to know, if you get injured at any time during your phase, it's important to log it into your menstrual cycle data. Are workouts more intense at some specific point in our cycle? Are we at a higher risk of injury, or do we tend to get injured or sick more at a certain part of our cycle? And we can actually see that through the data. And this is really important. As I said, we don't know if it's psychological, physiological, or both. Considering there's not a ton of science around this, and we really, really, really need more data from scientists and huge studies and long-term studies with athletes specifically, this is difficult, and that's why I'm asking you to collect your own data. Use this every day instead of doing a diary, instead of keeping a spreadsheet, instead of writing it down somewhere. Track it into your phone, even if it's just every other day for 2 months, just to get an idea of where your menstrual cycle is, how long it is, and it gives you a really good idea about your performance, your readiness to train, your regeneration, and your overall health as an owner of a uterus. This is something that has been neglected, so we are making up for lost time. Let's get started. Put this to use. Let me know if you have any questions, and please keep me updated. I would love to know how your period tracking is going, as weird as that sounds. Peace.